to our next speaker, bringing in Seb Loze and Epic Games. And we've spent probably the last 30, 40 minutes with a tight focus on Department of Defense. And now we're going to open up our viewfinder and understand how the technology related to virtual humans and secure data extends way beyond DoD into all the worlds, so to speak, that Seb and teams touch. Seb, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Travis and Karim. I'll be sharing my screen in a second. Let me know if you see my slides.
Looks good.
Oh, good. So yeah, again, thanks a lot for having us here today. It's a pleasure to be with you again, and really an honor to present with this great lineup of presenters today. So I'll try to get the most of these 15 minutes that we have together and give you some thoughts to stimulate the conversation around the concept of innovation and illustrate how commercial technology, when it's properly open and accessible, can help the simulation field. And I'll focus mostly on virtual humans here in this short presentation. So I'm sure that we will agree that we're living through exciting period of technological changes. In the past 5 years alone, we've seen a huge advance in cloud computing, connectivity, artificial intelligence, automation, and interactive and immersive technology. So across many aspects of business and society, we're seeing exciting shifts emerge as these technologies continue to evolve, and in some cases revolutionize how we play, how we work, and how we interact with each other. So the door has been opened to more richer, more immersive experiences and content, from the game we play to the movie we watch, and from the way we shop or collaborate in the workplace to the way we learn or analyze the world in classrooms and in labs. So we're now part of this interactive age where things that were impossible in the past are suddenly possible. And so a few very short words about Epic Games, very briefly. We do two things. We do video games, as some of you know already, with games like Fortnite, and we have a core game engine that's called Unreal Engine that we develop and we distribute to different type of people, either in games and in non-games. I'm the responsible person for training and simulation at Epic Games. We call it industry manager. My goal is to try to understand what people are doing in the simulation field and how we can adapt Unreal to make it more suitable for their needs. And we're adapting in lots of different domains. One of them is virtual human simulation. Over the course of the last 3 years, remarkable companies joined the Epic Game family. Trilateral, Cubic Motion, and Hypersense have years of experience and expertise into scanning, animating, and understanding human characters, human behaviors, and human representations. So we build up on top of that expertise, and in the context of Unreal, we end up having solutions used in large domains like AEC, film and TV, broadcast, automotive, and simulation, the one that's interesting for us here. And in the simulation field, there's nothing that looks like a video game than a simulation application when you think about it. Only the goal is entirely different. And in the past, you couldn't reconcile having something accurate and something visually appealing if you wanted them to be real-time. So you either had real-time and accurate or real-time and beautiful, but real-time, true to life visually and accurate couldn't be reconciled years ago. So Unreal Engine, as I mentioned, is a game engine. That's the core of what we deliver to the industry. And we see it as as sitting in the framework level in the applications that you develop, right? Where the low-level tech is sitting, right? Where your interoperability solutions are, where your standard databases for context are. But on top of that, you need to lay your integration effort to specialty features implementation and curriculum definition. So Unreal Engine is not your virtual human simulator, it is one lower brick to define them. And we have several players in the simulation space who decided to move forward and work on reconciling real-time accuracy and visual realism. So that's a bit far from our core topic. And if we go one step closer, one thing that's interesting is the fact that these companies, Trilateral, Hypersense, and Cubic Motion, since they joined Epic Games, we worked on simplifying the process of creating digital humans. And while leveraging the precision and the accuracy of what they developed across the years of their experience, we created the MetaHuman creators. So the MetaHuman creators is that tool to help anybody to basically, very simply, create human representations that can be fed by any simulation solution, any human behaviors or physiological simulation systems. The image that you see is a screenshot from a real-time application, and I'll show you a bit more about that. So, what does it mean for virtual humans when we introduce the MetaHuman creators? Well, there are three main takeaways. And by the way, the MetaHuman creator is free, and Unreal Engine is free. And Unreal Engine source code is on GitHub, so it sits very nicely next to other modules that we discussed today in this conversation. So, what does it mean? So the first thing is very high quality photorealistic human characters are possible in real time, right? I'll play that video with no sound, just so you have a view of what we mean here. And can you see my screen? Okay. Okay, cool. So earlier this year, after years of R&D, we're able to release the first version of the MetaHuman creator. So it's a complete framework to create, to rig, and to animate very high quality photorealistic human characters. So they're underpinned by a unique set of technologies that delivered previously this level of quality for the companies that I listed before. So what's important to know is that there are a lot of modules and elements in the MetaHumans that are really rich and helpful for the community. First is the face mixing, data-driven, nonlinear authoring. So the MetaHuman database is pre-populated with a large variety of production-ready AAA game quality characters that you can use as a starting point. So you can use them to accelerate your development and to start from somewhere. And you can modify them as much as you want until you reach something that is unique and not linked to any IP. So you don't require to have the rights to use these characters because these characters are coming out of thin air. You invented them, right? So you can use them as much as you want. So the animators don't simply, record videos. It creates a digital double, and it's a very complete and precise coding of facial expressions. And in our case, what we wanted to do is to make sure that you don't need a massive rig to integrate these characters into your application. You can just take your iPhone and take the data from the iPhone directly and leverage them from the sensors of commercially available cell phones to allow the MetaHuman to receive behaviors of photorealistic reactions. And these reactions can be parameterized and the stimulus injected by any simulation application. So the MetaHuman in a nutshell are a meat puppet, if you want, in this context of very high fidelity that can also scale to different level of details to reach any type of deployment solutions that you're looking for. So and I'll skip that video and I'll move forward in my presentation to bring you to the second point. The second point is super important. Not only you can create these characters that are extremely high quality in terms of visual representation, But it allows everybody to become a storyteller. It allows anybody to be able to animate them and to tell a story with them. I'll show you how you animate and how you use that rig that we created here. So the meta-humans, they're designed to let anyone become the storyteller and take advantage of these characters. So they do not require any particular technical skills, making human characters accessible for everyone, right? From game designers to filmmakers to fashion retailers and influencers. There's a large variety of users of the meta-humans. But the ones that are the most challenged traditionally when it comes to artistic view are my fellows from the simulation group, simulation industry, right? We don't have always the best designers or the best graphic artists. And on top of that, here, with that rig that we create, that is entirely programmatic, right? You just see the front end here, the visual interface that we create. But this is all entirely programmatic, so you can define expressions and transition between expressions as much as you want to bring the right level of fidelity to the meta-humans that you define. So the characters come already fully rigged and ready to be animated, and can be easily uploaded to Unreal Engine or to Maya. So we don't lock you. We don't want you to be locked in a world, and we want to make sure that anybody can use them as much as they want. It brings me to the third point that I wanted to bring in this short presentation today. The pipeline can be simplified, right? The creation pipeline sometimes are extremely convoluted. You use 5 or 10 tools in the process of what you're developing. In that context, in that specific context that I described here, the meta-human framework contains everything creators need to create, edit, and animate their objects and deliver digital humans, which don't have to be switched between environments, which allow to streamline the production process. So imagine all the tools and core simulation engine that you have developed over the years. They can easily be the stimuli for any animation of a meta-human that can suddenly becomes the presentation layer of these solutions, right? They let user get started quickly with the pre-made characters, and you can extend the behaviors and interactions of these characters within the application that you create. All right, so back to simulation. We all know the simulation application workflow, right? We have content, we have scenario execution, and we have IOs that interact either for the trainees or the analyst to interpret the data that are coming from the scenario executed, or the exercise executed, or the experience that we wanted to run. All that process can be really scary when you're dealing with solutions that are black boxes, right? So this one is not too detailed, but I'll switch to the next slide, which is highly detailed here, where you see the different phases or the different tasks that you need to run in a simulation application when you're building any type of application, basically. As you can see, you can input all the environment and models that you want using the solutions that we have called DataSmith that allows you to integrate any formats that you have. We also have the digital humans and the meta-human creators that allows directly for integration in UE. Now, all the scenarios that you will run are one thing, but in many cases, you want everybody to have access to the simulator. You don't want to limit the access of the simulator to people who are running only high-end, super performance gaming computers, or in some cases, gaming consoles. You want everybody to be able to have access to it, and that's what we have in this deployment pipeline here. As part of the deployment, when you develop something with UE, you can select how you will display it and which target you will be hosting your application on. It can be a cell phone, it can be a tablet, it can be a computer, or it can be a web application that's running somewhere in a cloud, in a secured cloud, where you give access to specific users that don't have to have the IT configuration that is the backend IT. So leveraging cloud computing and pixel streaming, you're able to display and to deploy these applications the way you want. All right. So now imagine, from the conversations we had today, and the statement from Karim earlier about CentOS being able to leverage Unreal Engine and the meta-humans moving forward, right? We want to make sure that by virtue of what we're developing, we allow software engineers, artists, game developers, and subject matter experts to work together as an entire community, right? By leveraging these technologies that are coming from the video games and essentially funded by the video games industry, and leverage it as part of the simulation applications that you're developing. So that's the end of my little presentation here. Open for any questions you may have at that point. So back to you, Travis.
Seb, thank you so much for that presentation. We keep looking at MetaHuman, in our conference room, and we're just amazed at the reality of it. Yeah, your presentation has all those things that our teams and DoD and industry and everyone's interested in. Free, open access to the code to design in, amazing partners that you help connect to, and I think the one question that we were talking about is some of the next steps that you see, maybe related to the Army and what they're doing with modeling and simulation, but probably beyond the Army, just DoD in general, how you see this, your technology, helping them with their human performance challenges. Maybe it's sleep or preventing injury, but down to the individual level. So
there's one thing very, very fun in what's happening to us when we release a solution like MetaHumans, and when we say that, when we position Unreal as an open source and free software, is that, we have our use cases in mind, but suddenly we realize that people had other projects for it, and suddenly we discovered the use cases by the conversations that we're having out there, outside of Epic and what we had in mind originally. So I'll give you a couple of examples. In the simulation field, the healthcare community is struggling, as you know, because they need to scale up, and scaling up with the current model where you have typical patient players, which are actually actors that are trained to be a patient in an interview with a practitioner or a nurse, is extremely hard to scale, because you need to train more, because they don't have the same talent, because they don't have the same reactions to the same test. So there's no possibility actually of having replication in the training, right? To have a training that ends up being precise enough for the practitioner. So having a MetaHuman that would be replicating a human behavior, even in the way they physiologically react in their face, how the pupil will dilate, how the skin tone will evolve, how the sweat will potentially appear on the forehead, depending on the level of stress, etc., can help practitioners to build better interview process and their trainers to know that the sky is the limit, because they suddenly have something that can evolve very well. Now, on top of that, compared to traditional mannequins, they come in all genders, all backgrounds, ethnical origins and ages, as well as health and shape and weight and strength. So you can actually replicate a world that is true to life, right? So you don't always have super healthy 25 years old athletic white male in your interview process, right? So you can actually have all the panel of interviews that you want. So that's one thing. And from there, there's another world, which is in the DoD, which is very interesting. It's everybody doing human intelligence interviews, and training the officers that will be operating in that context to be ready for identifying behaviors of humans which are either sharing true information or dissimulating information. That level of finesse is brought by the ability that you can look at a character in the eyes and wonder if that character is lying or not. And you can achieve that with MetaHuman. Suddenly, when you create one, it happened to me actually the first time I was using the tool. When you create one and you start to animate it and you see it moving on your screen, you start wondering what they're thinking. And you then have to take a step back and say, okay, they're just a bunch of polygons that I just created. They're not thinking yet. but really, at looking in their eyes, you start to have that emotional connection with the character, which is extremely engaging for any training that you're building.
Right. Yeah, that movement to realism. And as you're discussing the effects that should be occurring in this human in front of you, sweat and exertion, it's created the whole next frontier as we think about it from Iowa for Santos is, yes, we're calculating the physiology, we know the stress and the strain, but now you're getting into a higher level of accuracy of how do you represent graphically that type of physiological experience or biomechanical movement.
Exactly. It's easier to read in people's face than looking at a bar chart to know how they feel.
Yeah. Well, fast. Again, thank you so much for your time and being here.